Hey writer friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Holly. I'm a writer aspiring to be a published author. And in today's video, I will be showing you how to write diverse characters. And of course, I have a special guest with me. If you can't see, this is Heather. Yay!
Hi!
This is my twin sister, Heather. So she has collabed with me on many a video before, and whenever she's in town, we always make sure we get a collab video up.
Gotta do that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like a necessity. And then also, Heather had ran a giveaway over on her Instagram. Is it Heather?
Yep.
Yes, on Instagram, so follow her if you aren't, because you're missing out on tons of goodies. So I actually won on her Twitter giveaway this shirt from iWriterly, Go Away, I'm Pretending to Write, which is kind of epic. Yeah, I love it so much. So yeah, go check out iWriterly too, because she's got some really awesome Writerly shirts. I will link everyone's social media down below.
Yeah, it's really hard to choose from that store, so just a warning.
Yeah, there's many good, you'll want to buy everything. So this is the second video in my character series. So if you didn't see the first video, how to write realistic characters, I will link that down below. So we really wanted to touch upon this topic because writing diverse characters is so very important. And you know, even though Heather and I are twins, like we're still very different. So like if we're different, then obviously the rest of the world is very different too.
It's really important for us to put diversity in our novels because we're biracial, so we're half black. And we know that when, growing up, when we read stories, we wanted to read stories about all different types of people. And especially now, it's even more important to make sure that there's representation from all different types of people, and making sure that those kids, teenagers and adults are being able to read books with people who either look like them, sound like them, or someone that they can better relate to.
So diversity can look like many things. That can include POC, so people of color. It can include LGBTQ plus representation, fat positivity, people with disabilities, and other own voices.
Yeah, so as far as own voices goes, it's really important to make sure that you're writing characters that come from, culture or ethnicity that is from your background. And, we don't want misrepresentation of any one particular group, and making sure that it's a relevant issue. So if you don't feel like you can say it's your own voice, just be careful, because you don't want to be writing about someone and kind of putting words in the mouths of that culture.
Right, because you don't want to tell a story that's not yours to tell, but you don't want to whitewash your novel as well. So it's all about finding a balance. So for example, I like to use the LGBTQ plus community. So if you're not from that community, you don't want to write like a coming out novel, because that's not your story to tell. But it is completely fine for you to have characters in your novel who are gay or bisexual or trans, but it's not that story for them is about that.
Yeah, and one thing that is really important is to make sure that these characters are having their own adventures. So the story is not just about their, sexual identity or their color or the race or anything like that. It has to deal with, they might, for example, it might be someone who is in a wheelchair and they're going on their own adventure, and the story doesn't revolve around, them being in a wheelchair. So that is one thing to kind of keep in mind too when you want to kind of add that diversity to your novel.
Yeah, because those people want to see themselves represented in novels, but they want to see themselves like going on adventures too. It's not all about, those real life struggles. Okay, so now that we've got that point across, Heather and I are now going to go into how we've incorporated diverse characters in our novels and how we've handled anything that has come up that's been problematic. So TCC has a diverse cast of characters, including people of color and LGBTQ representation. So, that was my first time really writing such a diverse cast, and it was a learning process for me. So my main character, Lucci, her love interest, Rem or Jeremy, he is black, and her best friend, Kendra, is half Filipino, half Chinese. And so I really wanted to represent diverse characters in my novels, but I didn't quite know how to describe them. So when I was first describing their appearance for Rem, I had said that, you know, his skin was like chocolate, and then I had said that Kendra had almond-shaped eyes. I also said that Lucci was very jealous of her exotic look, and I didn't, you know, mean any, you know, any harm by using these descriptions, because I didn't know that that's not how I should be describing those characters. But I learned that it's not good to describe these characters using food. So chocolate, almond, gotta cut that. So for Kendra, I learned that it was okay to say that her eyes were angular shaped instead of the almond shaped, things like that. Also, when I had first introduced Kendra, it's in a locker room and the girls are changing after gym class, and she's very loud and boisterous, and she, like, while she's talking, her like towel, you know, flies off and she's just like naked, and the girls in the locker room are like, what is going on? Forgot to mention that Kendra is also gay, so this could be seen as problematic because, you know, people could generalize, oh, all gay people are very loose and just like out there with their sexuality, and I didn't want that to come across that way. And I didn't want that to be generalized across the LGBTQ community. There were also some other things that I didn't even think of. So TCC has some light sci-fi elements to it, so there are when I was writing it, there were black holes and white holes, and those are actual scientific terms. So most people know about black holes, but then kind of the opposite of black holes are white holes. So in TCC, the white holes were, you know, the good wormholes, the good ways of transportation, and the black holes were bad, and like once you go in there, you can't come back out. But one beta reader had told me that, you know, that could be kind of problematic because, you know, it could be seen as like white is good and black is bad. And I'm like, oh my God, I totally didn't, you know, I didn't mean for it to come across that way. Even though those were scientific terms, I didn't want it to be taken the wrong way. So I did change that. I kept the black holes, but the white holes, I just called them wormholes. So they're just normal wormholes. So that's a way that I dealt with that. Okay, you guys, sorry, we had to get nice and cozy right here because I thought my camera was charged, and it's not. And so like the closest outlet is really, really close. So we had to be really close to you guys. So we were far away, now we're close. So thanks for sticking around. The struggle is real. So then there are also little things that you might not think about. For example, one of my male characters had a pink door, and like my main character like laughed at the pink door, and it was because like he's a guy, and I realized like that's not okay because like guys should be able to wear pink, have a pink door if they want to. So I kind of changed it where she was just laughing because it like didn't really fit with his personality, since he's a little more like serious, and he kind of has that playful banter a little bit, but he's not as like bubbly and outgoing as like a pink door would represent him. So I kind of had to tweak that. And then lastly, I do have a character who is Hispanic, and so he says some phrases and sentences in Spanish and kind of talks in Spanglish sometimes, which I felt like that was represented well because all of my beta readers had said that they really enjoyed that.
So I'm going to give some examples of diversity in my novels. So this book has been on hold for quite a while, but one of my works in progress is called Wings, and what is interesting is that I built the whole world. It's basically its own world, so I found that I couldn't describe characters as, you know, African American, or I couldn't say, you know, this character's Japanese, because it is all related to, there's just no races there. So what I did instead was I just described the skin tones, and what helped is that I did get character art of those characters to sort of help with that. But I haven't had any beta readers be able to look it over yet to see if that makes sense, because one thing that could be a little bit telling are the characters' names. So for example, some of my characters, they might have more Asian sounding names. So even though I don't have Asian countries in this world, because it's just this one special world, you can at least get a better picture of who that character is and what they look like based on that. So that could be a hint too. And you don't want to be super stereotypical with it. So I've tried to be careful. I haven't been able to really validate whether or not that works. But that's something to kind of keep in mind too. If you're building a whole world in and of itself. You can just incorporate that diversity sort of naturally into the world. And another tip that I found helpful is there's a website called Quora, Quora, and you can ask any question you want about anything to anyone. It's similar to a lot of different websites, but I have found it useful because you can get very specific in what you're looking for. So you can say, is this specific thing, whatever it is in your novel, realistic for a lesbian character, for example, if that's what you want. And so even if you don't know and you've Googled a lot and done research and you've talked to people, that might also be helpful. And so far I've at least found it helpful to sort of scroll through questions that other people have asked too. So I haven't asked those questions yet, but I have found it helpful to scroll through other questions that people have asked. The only other thing I'm going to mention about Wings is that you want to also think about diversity and representation, and trying to not be stereotypical, not just for, just try to think outside of the box. So for example, in the beginning, there's a scene where the characters go into a hospital and the main character starts talking to the receptionist. And then I say, the receptionist, blah, 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 he said this, or he paged, blah, blah, blah. We know that, in our world, there are male nurses, there are male receptionists, there are male waiters, but just trying to think of ways to bring that diversity and things that are natural in the world and not be stereotypical based on sort of gender roles too. And so then for my current work in progress, Crossing the Rubicon, I have incorporated diverse characters into this novel, and I've tried to do it really naturally. So for example, in the beginning, the characters turn on the TV and then I say, newscaster Sylvia Wu says that, or something about the newscaster. So instead of just saying John Smith, yeah, instead of saying like the newscaster John Smith, I'm sort of naturally putting in diversity there. And my male MC is white, but my female MC is Latinx, so she's Latina. And I know in the community, it's really important to not generalize there as well. So a lot of people say, well, they're not just Hispanic. It's like, are they Mexican? Are they Puerto Rican? Are they Mexican and Puerto Rican? Are they Ecuadorian? Are they actually from Spain? And that really makes it important. There's a reason why I don't specifically say Nina Martinez, her ethnicity, but while my beta readers were going through it, I never had any questions related to her, and a lot of people liked how I incorporated her diversity naturally into the story. Let's just say, without spoiling anything. And I have some other diverse characters in the story. I'm not going to go into details there, but I did want to mention that I think it's important not to just check off a box and say, okay, I have my person of color in the story, I'm good. You really want it to come naturally and make sense. So, don't just put a blind autistic amputee in your novel because you really want to represent those communities and have that representation. It just doesn't make sense. And especially for what you can bring to the table, and you can also talk to some of your friends or coworkers who, might be able to sort of bounce those ideas back and forth with you. And really, the importance is to just don't force it, let it come naturally, but be deliberate about trying to incorporate it into your novel. So if you don't have any African American friends, but you have a lot of Asian friends, maybe it makes more sense for you to have, one of the other major characters in your novel be Asian, because, you might feel a little bit more comfortable having that character and having their voice in the story. But, that doesn't mean you have to limit yourself. And then another thing that I've heard in the community is don't make your only diverse character the villain. That is an important thing. And sure, they can be villains too, but be careful about how you put them into the story.
So what's kind of like the common theme that we saw with finding things that were problematic in TCC and things that you needed to incorporate in Wings and Crossing the Rubicon is that Our beta readers and other people showed us these things. We had to go to outside sources in order to realize if we were representing our diverse characters correctly. So my number one tip for you is to get diverse beta readers and get sensitivity readers. So if you have that gay or lesbian character, you want to have a beta reader or a sensitivity reader who is gay or lesbian. I know sometimes it is hard to find that, but try as best you can, or even if you're just talking to your friends in the writing community, that's going to be the best way for you to represent them correctly. And you also want to do your research. So one of my good friends who was a beta reader for the Celestial Code, Julia Simpson, thank you, Julia, she directed me to a website that helped me with those descriptions to not describe people's skin tone and the way they look with food. And so I'm gonna link all of these websites down below, but these good resources were writingwithcolor.tumblr.com, and then also weareallmixedup.tumblr.com, thisisnotafrica.tumblr.com, and then thisisnotlatinx.tumblr.com. So these are all great resources for you to make sure that you're describing and representing these characters correctly. Now I know we have kind of talked more about people of color and people from the LGBTQ community, so we haven't really incorporated too many characters with like disabilities, so if that's something that you are interested in having a video about, let me know and I can try to find some additional resources for that. But all in all, I want you to make sure that you don't feel bad if you have described characters in this way, if you haven't really incorporated a lot of diverse characters. In Ranakori Realm, my very first novel, I did have some diversity, but I did have a lot of white characters too, and it just like, that's just how I wrote it. But like, I mean, we're half black, we didn't do it intentionally, like we weren't, like I wasn't trying to whitewash my novel, but that's just kind of how I wrote it. And a lot of this, it was just a lot of the side characters that were diverse. And so as I started writing and I realized that like, yeah, the world is diverse and I want to represent this, and it was having those characters come out naturally for me. So don't feel bad if you do something or say something wrong, but just correct it, fix it, and make sure that it doesn't happen in the future. Remember, the goal in writing diverse characters correctly is to avoid stereotypes, tropes, and racism. Well, thanks for having me. Thank you, yes. So that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you found these tips helpful. Please let us know in the comments down below how you've incorporated diverse characters into your manuscripts. And also, if you have any other resources that you would like to share for us, because I'm always looking for new resources in order to provide correct representation. Please give this video a big thumbs up and click subscribe to support my channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!